Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Good afternoon.
We have limited time, so I hope you won't mind if I jump straight in what you've been saying in the last few days. You began with a video in the immediate aftermath of the Southport stabbings that engaged in conspiracy theories about who did this and about whether the police were telling the truth. You said, and I'm quoting here, some reports suggest he, the man charged, was known to the security services. Which reports?
This is the problem, isn't it? One of the reasons the Southport riots were as bad as they were is we weren't told the truth. There were stories online from some very prominent folks with big followings, Andrew Tate, etc., suggesting the man had crossed the English Channel in a boat in October 2023. Other suggestions that he was an active Muslim. And much of this led to the riots that we saw.
But you amplified that because you said some reports suggest.
I asked a very simple question. Was this person known or not? Now,
to the security services.
Absolutely.
And that's a perfectly legitimate question, which was raised by Yvette Cooper. But, Nigel
Yes.
Farage, you didn't just do that, did you? You said
Yes.
some reports suggest he was known to the security services. Those reports were from a fake news website amplified by Russian state TV and, as you mentioned, Andrew Tate. Which ones were you looking at?
Which adds to what I was asking for. Give us some clarity. Remember, the London Bridge attacker, we knew within an hour that this person was known to the security services. Whenever in Northern Ireland there was a terrorist outrage, very quickly people were told the background of the perpetrator.
But you didn't
I
just
asked
stop
a
there.
very simple question.
You said some reports suggest he was known to the security services. Those reports were a fake news website, Russian state TV,
Well,
and
I could
Andrew
have
Tate.
said. I could have said.
So which one was it, Nigel Farage?
I could have said some reports suggest he crossed the Channel last October. Some reports suggest he's an active
And all of
Muslim.
that was unfounded.
I did none of those things. What I asked for was clarity. We didn't get clarity,
didn't
and
just
I
do
would argue that what happened in Southport would not have been of the same magnitude had the truth been told, and told very, very quickly. It wasn't for many hours that we learned more.
No, you're right, but that was the chronology of it. But you don't need to amplify the mystery.
I asked the question.
To cite, quotes, some reports suggest the reports are fake, and you accept that now. They're misinformation.
There were thousands of fake reports everywhere.
And you cited
all
them.
of which puts the emphasis on the questions being answered, which they weren't.
So did you accidentally fall for that misinformation?
No, I didn't believe any of it.
Or did you know it was wrong from the get-go?
I hadn't got a clue.
So why did you cite it?
Because the people wanted to know the truth. And if they had known the truth, Tom, the riots would not have been of the same magnitude.
But you're not just people. You are an elected representative of the people in a position
representing
in
a question
position of authority,
representing a question that was being asked by millions at the time, which regrettably did not get answered. Now, look, here's the point. All right, there are people out there suggesting that in some way, despite after 30 years of fighting all sorts of different elections, of believing that the democratic process is the way to deal with arguments, debates, and solve problems. I have never been involved in street protest. I have never been involved in violence. I have always been 1,000 miles away.
Well, literally in this
from
case,
far-right agitators, from conspiracy theorists. I've always been as far away from those people as I can possibly be.
Well, you had some in UKIP, which I think is one of the reasons why you left UKIP. Paul Waters.
Well, actually, I left UKIP after 25 years.
So back to what you said.
I left UKIP after 25 years because the leadership at the time encouraged Tommy Robinson to be a part of it. I did more to get rid of the BNP as a political force in Britain than anybody else in the country.
You amplified this misinformation.
No, Tom.
No, you did.
You are getting this
you
wrong.
Said some reports suggest.
Give us clarity.
You didn't just say that, though, Nigel.
I did.
You also said the internet was awash with all sorts of theories, all of which proved to be unfounded.
Yes.
But that's what led to the riots in Southport. But you indulged in those theories. By the way,
I've still not been told whether this person was on a list or not. I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
No, I don't know. But that's why it's a legitimate question.
Do you think we deserve to know?
Absolutely. I think the police need to give us the answer.
So my question is still valid?
Your question is valid, but not in the way that you put it, because you know what you're doing. You suggested some reports suggest that he was known to the security service, that he came on in a boat, that he was an asylum seeker. That's not true.
And I didn't.
And my question to you is, did you know that was not true?
I don't know now whether this man was known to
So
the police
why are
or
you
not.
promoting those reports?
Because I want to know the truth. I wanted to know it then, and I want to know it now. And I get the feeling we're not always being told the whole truth.
Okay, let's come to that, because you also said that. You wondered whether, and I'm quoting again, the truth about Southport was being withheld from us. What evidence do you have that the police are lying to people?
The evidence was withheld on Southport. Had we been told very quickly, as we could have been, that in fact this fella had been born in the United Kingdom, that his parents were Rwandans, that he didn't come from an Islamist type background, had we been told he hadn't arrived by boat, I suggest to you that what happened that night in Southport would not have been of the same magnitude. Would you not agree?
I've got no idea.
Would you not agree?
That's a counterfactual.
Well, if you think
what evidence do you have, Nigel
if
Farage,
you
that
think,
the police are misleading people?
I don't know.
Well, so why did you say it? Why did you say the truth about Southport is being withheld from us?
Well, then you tell me whether this man was on the suspect list or not. You don't know the answer to it. Don't we deserve to know it?
But that's not to say that people are lying.
Don't we deserve to know it?
That's to say that we don't know. You don't know yet. So you could just wait rather than tell people that the police might be lying.
I've now waited nearly a week, and I've still not been, and that question has still not been answered.
So what evidence did you jump back to my question? You have no evidence that the police are withholding information.
It is utterly legitimate to ask questions.
It is.
Utterly legitimate, and that is all that I did.
But not having an answer and filling the silence with "they're lying to you" is not legitimate.
I don't believe we're being told the full truth yet about this person. I want to know. I think we all want to know.
So the police are lying?
I didn't say that. Not telling the truth is not the same as lying.
The truth about Southport was being withheld from us. Do you still think the truth is being withheld by the police from the people?
I still don't know who this man is.
Truth that you thought people already knew because you cited some reports saying that he'd come on a boat.
I still don't know who this man is, and I repeat the point, had those questions been answered, far from stoking riots, it would have actually calmed them down considerably.
But you allowed it to be stoked because you cited the fake reports and you used the fake reports as a way to say the police are not.
I gave the police the opportunity to dampen down speculation. They should have done it, and I bet they regret not doing it.
Do you want to retract the comments and delete that video?
No, I want to know the truth.
You don't want to retract the comment that the police are lying to people?
I never said that.
The police aren't giving you the full information?
I'm sorry. I've come in and had an honest conversation. Don't make it up. Don't twist it, because that's what other people are doing.
Accusing me of
And by the way, yes, you just have. You just have twisted.
Told people, I'm quoting you.
You just have twisted the words.
You wondered whether the truth about Southport was being withheld from us.
We have a situation in this country, right, where ever since Black Lives Matter, there is increasing distrust of the police in this sense. The idea that there's two-tier policing is now widespread in society. That is something that very urgently needs to be dealt with.
I'm going to ask you about that.
Very urgently.
But I just have to issue this clarification because you have said in the course of the conversation something that could be sub judice, and we just need to be very careful about the charge that has been laid against this person. I think that he's been described in the course of it. So we pause there to be very careful about what we're going to say about an open case. What is two-tier policing?
Two-tier policing is you deal with different types of protests and different types of crime in different ways. One of the classic cases is stop and search. Stop and search. By the way, a policy that is wildly popular across the country. Doesn't matter whether people are on the left or the right of politics. The idea that the police should randomly stop and search people for knives in the streets is extraordinarily popular whenever I say it.
You have said that in Hare Hills in Leeds, police ran away and allowed a riot. Is that two-tier policing?
I think if you look at the way the police dealt with the Hare Hills protests and dealt with the Southport protests, I think any fair-minded person would think there were two different police reactions. Now, let me be clear.
But aren't they because two different incidents? They're two different types of protests.
Well, yeah, but they're both violent. They both set fire to things. They both threaten property. They both threaten law and order. And so I mean, look, I tell you something. The perception of two-tier policing is very, very dangerous indeed. And by the way, we've got a situation now with violent riots going on, by far the worst we've seen since 2011. But actually, I think 2011 was a mass outbreak of criminality, opportunistic criminality. This is different. These are two sides with deeply entrenched positions.
Back to two-tier policing.
All right.
What you're really saying is, Not that there are different operational decisions appropriate to the severity of the situation that police have
Yes,
to
I
make,
am
is
saying that.
But that's what policing is, isn't it? Here's Graham Wetton, who spent 30 years in frontline public order roles with the Met. Of course there are tiers in police response, I'm quoting, because you make operational decisions appropriate to the severity of the situation. But there are not tiers based on preference or favouritism.
Well, I tell you
agree?
look, what we know are the police forces in this country are terrified of being accused of being racist and therefore police things differently. And stop and search, which I began with a moment ago, is a classic example of where we've downplayed stop and search in areas with higher black proportions of the community. By the way, despite the fact the majority of those that die of knife crime are black people themselves.
But the operationalising of police decisions is something that the police have to answer for. They need to be accountable for those decisions. Yes. But it's not two tiers based on the colour of someone's skin or the favouritism the police might show one type of community, is it? We agree there.
No, we don't agree.
Right.
I think we use a softer approach on some groups than others.
And and your example for that is?
Well, I think Black Lives Matter, the way that was policed, is very interesting. I mean, people tearing down statues and chucking them in the dock with police just standing by and watching. And I think if you contrast the policing...
Those people were arrested.
Yes, and never even got a criminal charge, unbelievably.
Because the jury that's jury
just extraordinarily.
But that's what the jury is there for,
The police made no attempt to stop that from happening. We even saw Winston Churchill's statue being defaced. We saw the cenotaph being abused. All of those things happened with the police literally just watching. And I tell you something. Out there in the country, there is a widespread perception that we have two-tier policing. Now,
it might be the perception, but the reality might be different. Let me bring you the words of Graham Wetton again.
Well, perception and reality.
I'm going to give you this quote from Graham Wetton, who spent 30 years doing the job you're telling him how to do. The Met used, on BLM policing, the Met used an advance of the mounted branch, one of their most impactful tactics, which I've only seen deployed a couple of times in my whole career, and not at any of the incidents in the last week. So there's an argument to say the Met went in quite hard in some forms on the BLM protest.
I'm sorry.
In a way that they didn't do in the last week.
They took the knee in the street. You know, we can argue over fine points, but here is the real point. At no point in the last week or in the previous 30 years have I ever encouraged the use of violence. Have I ever encouraged the use of anti-democratic means? And yet, you know, you get the internet and people saying things on the internet. We have senior Labour politicians like Annie MacDonald saying, I wanted the riots to happen. We have former Conservative MPs like Anna Soubry saying that I orchestrated the riots. We have LBC presenters like James O'Brien calling them the Farage riots. I have had nothing to do with any form of street violence now or at any point in my career.
And people aren't just being arrested for going out.
This level of incitement to violence against me, which is utterly baseless, has led to a huge increase in my security uptick.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you have been...
No. You as a broadcaster too have that responsibility. LBC as a broadcaster have that responsibility. You're splitting hairs.
I'm not splitting hairs, Nigel.
You are splitting hairs.
I'm keeping you to the words that you use.
I am telling you that in this country there is a widespread perception of two-tier policing.
But you're also in a position to give them the reality, Nigel.
Yes,
and the reality might be very different from their perception.
No,
you agree?
I personally believe that we police different communities according to their racial backgrounds in different ways, and I want it to end.
And the examples of that are?
The examples of that are, for the third time...
The Black Lives Matter protest?
For the third time, the way that stop and search is implemented, or, frankly, not implemented.
There are people being arrested, obviously, for what they did in protesting on the streets. There are people being arrested for whipping up racial hatred online, for encouraging violence online. Do you worry that based on what you've said in the last few days, you might get a knock on the door from the police?
No.
You don't think that's going to come your way?
What, for asking the truth about the perpetrator of a heinous crime?
For suggesting that the police are lying without any evidence?
I didn't say they lied. You've done that. That's the third time you've done that, and you are irresponsible and wrong to do so. You are irresponsible and wrong to do so. I can give
you the quote again, Nigel, that you said the truth about Southport was being withheld from us.
I didn't call them... I didn't say they were lying.
So they're deliberately not giving people the truth?
That's a very different thing to lying. So don't use that word again, please. You've done it 3 times and you're wrong.
In Hare Hills, you said the police ran away and allowed a riot. The police say they pulled back temporarily as they have become...
What's the difference?
as they had become the sole target of those intent on causing trouble, and then went on to arrest people. Again, coming back to Mr. Wetton's comment, who did the job for 30 years, on Hare Hills, it started out looking like a standard call that many officers will go to, an incident at an address with social services trying to remove children, and then it blew up with officers coming under attack, and because of how quickly it escalated, withdrawal is the best tactic. Why do you think you can tell police how best to do their job?
All I can do is what all of us do, is to look at the facts before us, the evidence before us, as we see it, and draw conclusions. And I draw the conclusion that we have two-tier policing. And
But you might be wrong.
Mr. Wesson, I'm always prepared to accept that I'm wrong, which is why perhaps a bit more engagement the other way from the police might be useful. You see, when Sir Mark Rowley, the boss of the Metropolitan Police, is asked this very question by a reporter yesterday, all he does is manhandle the microphone away, which leads to that suspicion becoming even deeper. Tom, we've got these riots going on. We've had horrendous standoffs, appalling behaviour, setting fire to hotels. I mean, things that are almost unimaginably ghastly. On the other side, we've had Muslim intimidation of LBC reporters, amongst others. All right, so there are some terrible things happening on both sides, albeit the thuggery of...
Well, we don't know that they're Muslim.
Well, look, we know the communities they come from. We know the face masks they're wearing. I think we know.
We know it was terrible.
I think we know. I think we know it's pretty bad. All right. And when they're shouting, free Gaza and genocide, I think it's a fair bet to say who they are. Here's my real big point. Okay, we can quell the riots. The police can do whatever they need to do. We can bring the army in. We can do whatever. Unless we solve what's really at the heart of this problem, our danger is we become like France, where these things don't go away. They flare up every 3 months, 6 months, every year. There are, right at the heart of this, some very, very fundamental concerns about societal breakdown in our country. And there is no doubt that we have to address issues like uncontrolled mass immigration and division of our communities. And what I'm looking for is a long-term solution, not just a short-term one.
I don't know what any of that has got to do with Southport.
Don't you?
I don't. No, because the man charged
charged
was born in Cardiff.
Do you know what? You want to get out more. You want to get out more. You want to get out more.
The man charged was born in Cardiff.
Well, why didn't they tell people that? And then maybe the riots would not have been that bad.
But you jumped to conclusions,
They did not
Nigel.
tell people.
You jumped to conclusions based on having looked at Andrew Tate's Twitter feed or whatever.
They did not tell people before those riots sparked who he was and where he came from. And if they'd done that, this would have been far less serious.
But do you think you could have said in those circumstances, we don't know yet who this person is, so let's not jump to conclusions, let's wait and see and condemn how awful the attack was?
Or
it could have been an option.
Or I could have said, tell us the truth and maybe this will calm down, which is what I did.
The people rioting, some of them look to you. They see you as someone who espouses their worldview, their politics. Would you speak to them directly now to tell them to stop?
As I've done repeatedly over the last week. There is the reason that we fight, and I've fought for 30 years in European elections, by-elections, general elections, is I believe that parliamentary democracy is the way we stop violence overtaking our society. So I condemn all acts of political violence, whoever they're committed by. And let me tell you, the idea that, devotees of some of these extreme figures are fans of mine is a long way from the truth.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, was on LBC the other day, and she was asked about the responsibility that politicians have in these moments. She says, we have a responsibility to hold the community together and say, let's get the facts, and then let's look at what the actual solutions are and what we can do about the horrific situation that we find ourselves in, not to stir up this fake news online. But that is in part what you did.
No,
whether knowingly or accidentally, you lent into some of the fake news.
I asked for the fake news to be knocked down. I asked for the truth to be told. And Angela Rayner,
You said our country is being destroyed. By whom?
Oh, yes. Literally, our communities are being separated and destroyed.
By whom?
I think the political process, and by the way, it may be Labour in government, but the Conservatives are far more responsible. I think the fracturing of society because of mass immigration is one of the most serious social deconstructions we've ever seen in the history of these islands. And I honestly, I think there is a way we can deal with it. We won't solve it overnight, but we have to try.
So when Elon Musk says that civil war is inevitable, do you agree with him?
I pray that he's wrong.
Do you agree with him?
I pray that he's wrong.
So you do disagree with him?
No, I don't agree with him.
No. So you disagree with him?
I pray that he's wrong. How much stronger can I put it to you? I pray that he's wrong. Because you see, I see France, I see Paris, I see Marseille, and they are cities that are in a sort of permanent state of truce, and that truce breaks occasionally, and horrendous riots happen, and there is no prospect in those big French cities of any of this improving. I don't want us to go down that route. I really do not.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK and the Reform MP for Clacton.